if you just loved the session so much and want to rewatch it. Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here. My name is Bailey Johnson, and I'm the Community Engagement Consultant with Good Carts. And if you aren't super familiar with Good Carts, we are dedicated to supporting the growth of purpose-driven e-commerce businesses. And we have our main offering, which is a free e-commerce app that allows brands to cross-promote one another and get new customers, which if you're interested in learning more about, you can stay after this presentation for an optional demo. But we also have great offerings like an impact retail newsletter, amazing blog content, and these free workshops that support impact brands making a difference. So definitely follow us for more events like this. I'm going to quickly introduce Stephen Cliff to say a quick hello. He's our CEO and will be doing the demo afterwards. So Stephen, you want to say a quick hi?
Well, hello, everyone. Christina, thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. Christina and I have connected a couple of times, and I said, oh my gosh, you have got to present. And so I'm just really tickled that we're able to put this together. And for those who want to learn more about Good Carts, as Bailey mentioned, we always hang out at the end after it's all over. No obligation, but if you want to kick the tires with me, I'll give you a little mini demo. And it also gives us a chance for those who just want to hang out and chat and meet each other a little bit. We love meetups, if you will. So that's going to happen after the end, and look forward to connecting with folks then. Otherwise, you can contact goodcarts.co, contact any of us, and we can obviously do a one-on-one demo, or you can just, if you have a Shopify store or a WooCommerce store in particular, you can just self-install if you like. So thanks for being here.
Yay!
Yay. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, and if you are a Made in Minnesota brand, we're doing our next meetup on the 20th at noon Central Time. So check out our Eventbrite page to attend that if you're based in Minnesota. We're very excited about launching a Made in State circle here and then branching out to other states. So, but now let's get started with the meat of the event today, our workshop. I'm very excited to introduce you to Christina Noel, founder of Noel and Company. She's an award-winning social entrepreneur, marketing strategist, and speaker that specializes in helping organizations thrive and scale through customer research, design thinking, strategy, workshops, and storytelling. Christina, take it away.
Awesome. Well, it is so exciting to be here today. Stephen, Good Carts team, thank you so much. This is going to be a lot of fun. So as Bailey mentioned, I'm the founder of the Certified B Corporation, Noel & Co. And our mission is to amplify yours. And the way that we do that is we work with mission-driven organizations to achieve sustainable growth through research-informed marketing strategy. And today is all about research, so I'm super pumped. And what's kind of nice is it's research, but also implementation. Email and SMS is a lot of fun because you kind of get ROI and insights all at the same time. And then with our clients, we don't just create a plan and walk away. We also are there to help with implementation. So we often serve in a fractional marketing leadership role for as long as they need us. So a little bit about me and my background. So I've been a consultant for 12 plus years. And over that time, I've worked with more than 70 mission-driven organizations, just kind of crazy. So I've seen a lot, to say the least. And I'm super pumped to be sharing some of the insights I've seen with our e-commerce brands today, as well as also I'm going to just share some of my brand and content crushes as well, because I've always loved marketing. When I see marketing presentations that have ideas and inspiration, I always find it really useful. So here's our agenda. So we're going to start by setting the stage. What are we talking about? Where does it fit into the marketing mix? Then we're going to kind of dive into where to focus to develop your kick-ass email and SMS strategy, automation and segmentation. Those are kind of like the foundation to what we recommend. Like if you're going to start somewhere, that's where you start. Then we're going to dive into A/B testing, which is all about making your content better and more engaging. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to talk a little bit about deliverability. Because if your content is not getting into people's inboxes or, reaching their cell phones, then what's the point of all of this, right? Okay, so let's set the stage. So many of you probably likely recognize this is just one version of the marketing funnel. And the funnel is just like a visual representation of this idea of a customer journey, of someone going from having no idea that your company exists all the way to actually purchasing something if your product is right for them or products are right for them. So from the awareness piece at the top of the funnel, again, shout out to Good Cards. I feel like referral marketing is such a powerful way to have people know more about your brand. And then also oftentimes awareness is typically driven by some form of advertising, or event marketing, or when I think of events, I was thinking about Cotopaxi. Like the first time I heard about Cotopaxi was they were hosting, isn't it called Questival in our community? And so then if we use Cotopaxi, so you hear about a brand and then we have interest. And interest to us means that like someone actually lands on your social media page or your website because they're interested. And then where we're going to be focused today is on relationships and engagement and conversion. So whenever someone shows up on your social media, or in this case, on your webpage, are they opting in and giving you permission to come into their email inboxes or even start texting them? And if you think about it, like, that's actually, that's giving your brand, who they might not know very well, a lot of trust, because we all know bad marketing. And so many companies abuse these channels, but we are not. And we're going to talk about how to do it correctly and well. And then once people are subscribed, then the question is, are you sending content that they want, right? The right content at the right time to the right people. And then last but not least, are you making sales? So with a kick-ass email and SMS strategy, first and foremost, like when marketing is done well, I love this idea that people should fall in love with your brand. Like brands that I'm obsessed with, I'm in love with them. Like it took me 4 years, I think, to move down the I'm embarrassed to admit this, down to like Cotopaxi marketing funnel. This year, I finally purchased my first few items on sale on that customer. But then since then, I've like bought a lot of items for over the holidays for our next like adventures. And I'm obsessed. Like I'm now like brand obsessed. I will talk about them. I love that they're a B Corp. They have me, right? Like they've won me over. But in addition to falling in love, you can also, to help with that process, create customized relevant content that meets people where they're at. Everything from like, hey, I'm interested, but I actually haven't bought anything, all the way to, we know that Christina is obsessed with us. Maybe she's interested that we have new products. So, and they can actually tailor it to me. And then last but not least, email and SMS is amazing for growing your triple bottom line. So what is so special about these channels is they're arguably the only ones you own. And let's talk about ownership. Like you only own these channels to the point that like you don't piss people off and they unsubscribe. But what I mean by that is whenever you're, for example, using Facebook or Instagram, if Meta decides to completely change their algorithm overnight, even if you have thousands or millions of followers, like all of a sudden your content could just stop getting in front of them, which is kind of terrifying. And so that doesn't mean you don't do social media. It just means that like by the time someone has trusted you with email and SMS, like we need to do it right, because the beauty is like you can change email providers and that's not a problem. Like you get to take your list of people that still like you and bring them with you. So you own them-ish up until the point that they still like you. Also, the return on investment is fantastic. I think I was reading one thing that was approximately 38-1 of an ROI for email. And then text message marketing is a little bit trickier because it's not like you can track. What you can track is like the click through and sales, but we'll talk a little bit more about how the channels are important and different. But before we dive super into the content, I want to get a sense of who is on the call today. So does anyone, I'm going to say put in the chat why, if you currently do SMS, text message marketing. Surprise, there's interaction. Who does text message marketing? Yay or nay? Anyone? Yes, no, maybe. Nope. Bueller. What? Bueller. There might be some 80s references, and I'm very worried that people are going to be on this call that like don't necessarily. I'm like worried that the next generation is not going to know them. I do see if you do text, yeah. So no SMS. Okay, good. So we're going to talk about that channel in a big way. Oh yes, and that's a great question. We'll definitely look out for questions. I think that's a great question about SMS, which is like, how do you get people's numbers? And we can definitely discuss. Ooh, feels super intrusive. We can definitely talk through like what you're comfortable with, what's true to your brand, and best practices. Because I do not think that if you do text message marketing, you should be texting them every day. In fact, it doesn't work. And even though I like to do research by signing up for text, if a brand texts me more than like 3 times a month, like I'm out. I just can't stand it. So it all depends on your brand. Okay, next, do you know what I mean when I talk about flows? Has anybody heard of what a flow is? And it's okay to say no. Although you may also like, this is just the technical term for like automated emails. So say yes or no. Like triggers, yep, workflows, like an email cadence. Okay, good. It's good to know that there's different ways of describing what this is. Okay. That's like automated emails. All right. What email platforms do you use? I find this really, really interesting. GetResponse, MailChimp, Klaviyo. Yeah. Okay, good to know. Awesome. So it looks like a lot of MailChimp, some Klaviyo. Ooh, and over to HubSpot. Fascinating. Okay, great. And then last but not least, if you do text message marketing, what platform do you use if it's separate? Anyone? Any attentives? Klaviyo? Oh, Omnisend has a capability. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, good to know. Oh, and then last but not least, one final question. Who here has done A/B testing? Yes or no? No pressure. Okay, yes, kind of. I love it. Now, okay, cool. This is going to be a lot of fun. All right. Well, now that we have a sense for who's here and what platforms we use, I can really dive in and start getting into the details because we don't have time. We need to grow our mission-driven brands. So let's talk about where to focus, like the foundation. So automation, what's kind of funny is when I hear the word automation, I sometimes like think of scary robots like the Terminator, but this is more the kind of automation that we're talking about today is doing thoughtful work and then you get to chill for a little bit. I mean, you should always kind of stay on top of it, but automation can be really, really nice, both for your customers and for you. So a flow, as we talked about, there's lots of different names for it, but it's an automated email or series of emails triggered by some event. And so the one that you probably know the most is the abandoned cart flow. And so what that means, this is actually the last abandoned cart email I've gotten. I was shopping for a friend who just had a baby for a baby shower gift. Bellatuno, they're certified B Corp based in Charlotte. By the way, I'm from Raleigh. Buy one, feed one. And I think my credit card was downstairs and I just forgot about it. And so they were like, hey, we saved your cart for you. And the reason that this is really beneficial is, fun fact, abandoned cart can earn back 3 to 14% of lost sales. And later we're going to talk about deliverability, and it can also be great for deliverability because it's sending a relevant email to someone who, if they add a stuff to cart, we're likely interested in purchasing, and just letting them know, hey, we saved it for you. So you've like done something specific for them. Also, fun fact, Swell is on sale. I actually got this text message. So abandoned cart can also involve text message marketing as well. If someone is subscribed, I follow Swell because they're B Corp. And then, so abandoned cart, strong ROI, typically customers like it. It's highly relevant and useful. That is always, pretty much always where we recommend you start if you don't have one yet, if you are in e-commerce. And then next, and this is actually for B2B and B2C, is we recommend you have a welcome flow. And what this is, I mean, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. Somebody press subscribe and you expect to get an email. And oftentimes there's some kind of incentive. Then someone is trusting you with our contact information. It does help to have some form of an incentive. But as we get into A/B testing, like my advice is you can also test what that is and what feels right. And granted, some people will still sign up to stay in touch just because they want to know what's new with their brand, but still empowered. They're part of the Good Carts community, I believe. And they do have this lovely welcome email. And there's my actual specific welcome code, which is kind of nice. All right, so I am going to share my first case study with you all. So Bernie Wild is an adventure brand, and I'm pretty obsessed with them. Their founder, Mike Rosado, is also the founder and owner of MRC Design in Raleigh. They create beautiful brands, and as you can see, Bernie's is one of them. And Mike kind of asked a question like, Bernie's was born during COVID, and it's like, what if we could all live life a bit more adventurously? So from what we eat, can we have a little bit more adventure in it, all the way to like how we live in the world? And when we think about Mama Earth, right, can we take care of her? And can like sustainability be really something fun with branding? And so the sauce is amazing. It's gluten-free, plant-based. They started with a sauce, but also they have everything from like comic books to like other adventurous products as well. So check them out. And I'm going to show you. So we first worked together on their Kicka campaign. Oh. There's Steven, and they are Good Carts members. Steven mentioned in the comments. Yeah, incredible, like really cool content. So whenever you sign up for Bernie's, we first worked together on a marketing strategy for their Kickstarter campaign. They raised $11,000 to launch, which is awesome. And then now, as they develop their marketing strategy, shocker, what did we work on? Their welcome flow. So whenever you sign up, you get an email that's like, welcome to Bernie's. Here's your specific discount code. And it just talks a little bit about the company's mission. Then here's where I start getting really nerdily excited is they send a personalized letter from their founder in all text. So if you take one thing away from today, sending text only emails is a very, very, very good strategy. We have seen with some of the brands that we work with in looking at like their holiday campaigns, they've now started including like one email sent from a member of their team in a text campaign. And that has been the top performer. Like, text only works. And why? Because it hits inboxes. And then two, most importantly, it's human, right? Like somebody's cared about you. They've emailed you. It's thoughtful and it feels less salesy and more authentic. So hearing from Mike is a powerful way to really start understanding who their brand is and what they're all about. Then you learn a little bit about the hot sauce, right? This is their third email and all those 5-star reviews, which is awesome. And then last but certainly not least, they invite, right, their subscribers to hopefully follow them on social. So here's a disclaimer. So they are on Klaviyo as a platform. Our company's a partner, and I might actually have to go look that up. If there's anything I can't answer today, I will make sure we follow up in email. Because I think that is eventually something to A/B test, like what timing works best. But we can also talk a little bit about best practices. Because it kind of depends on your customer. Like it could be everything from one email a week all the way to, sorry, I'm looking at the comments, sending an email almost every day. It's like, hey, so great to know you. If you're going to do that, you probably want to say over the next few days, you're going to hear from us. We do not want to bombard people, and we definitely should look at settings to ensure we're not bombarding people with content. But one thing that's kind of neat is, so Klaviyo is just one of the platforms. Everything we're going to talk about today is relevant, regardless of platform. Like, this is all about our process. Setting up automated flows, it should be doable on every single platform you're on. Klaviyo just has some really unique, like, setting up flows is really easy in Klaviyo. It's a really cool business intelligence tool. And this is kind of an example of that. This is their 4th email, and it shows where people are clicking with like a heat map. So what this says to me, though, is Bernie Wiles probably should be focusing on TikTok and Instagram, right, compared to Facebook and Pinterest. There's that kind of, it's an example of like how your email and SMS can inform all of your marketing strategy. All right. Oh, I see some really good questions. You don't send Dear Christina emails because you're really worried that they didn't put their name in. That is a great point. I don't know how many of you have received the Dear fill in the blank. There's even an example I'm sharing today that had a hi blank, and I might have gone in and edited it because I didn't want to call any brands out. There are ways you can code it where if you don't have the first name, it can be like, hey, so-and-so, and then, or you could do, hey, you. So if, and the formula is like, if we don't have your first name, then we do, hey there, or hey, you. I will say, A/B testing wise, odds are that anything more personal does better, but also like people are smart and know that you are automating something. So it's a toss up, and it's very like personal to your brand. So I am bombarding you with words. Do not freak out. I already talked to Bailey that I plan to send you follow up with this in a PDF form. And what this is a recommendation for a third flow from Klaviyo's VP of content that I thought was brilliant. And essentially what it was on a podcast he was talking about, he's like, you've got your abandoned cart, you've got your welcome flow, and then a third flow I recommend you do is essentially after someone buys from you, you send an automated email that's like, look, thank you so much. We know you, like, we appreciate that you ordered from us. You have a choice and you made it by buying from us. Can you tell me, like, why did you ultimately decide to make this purchase? And so the reason this is awesome is he said that he's seen from many brands that A, you'd be shocked by how many people actually respond. And then B, you have engagement, right, with your content. And then C, and this is the best part, your customers are going to tell you why they love you or like why they decided to buy from you and the pain points that you solved for them. And I know we like reviews, and that's another way to get that customer feedback, but I love this idea of also capturing some of those insights just through email. And then based on that, you could then use those insights to help with your marketing all around. So I went back and actually like transcribed part of the podcast and copied and pasted it here for you. So then that way, if you decide to take this advice, you have it. Make it super easy. Okay, so you have your automation set up. Now let's talk a little bit about segmentation. And segmentation is like a fancy word for this idea that not all of your customers are the same, right? Most people are different, and there's certainly different groups and segments that are likely interested in you, and you should treat them differently. So the thought is, how can you divide your customers into subgroups based on interest, how much they've purchased, and we're going to dive into some more examples and send them customized content to them based on where they kind of fall and what their group is. So here's an example from Marine Layer, I believe, where they actually have retail stores and a web, an e-commerce strategy. And so the thought is for their welcome flow, anyone that signed up for email in store should get a different email than the people that signed up on the website. So they just slightly customize it to be like, we hope you come back, versus really just introducing the brand. then here, I believe they're part of the Good Carts community, Farinita. Am I right? Maybe. Either way, they're a great ethical brand. Okay, I'm seeing heads nod. They ask their customers what's their style, which is brilliant, right? Like they have this amazing jewelry. And then the question is, what style preference do you have? Because by knowing that, they can then customize even the campaigns that they send based on people's preferences. It's like a win-win, right? You get emails about things you actually want or text messages. So here's just a mini case study from a company called Amped. So it's a tool for A/B testing pop-ups on your website. I feel like we could have a whole conversation about to pop up or not to pop up. What's nice about Amped is it's a way to pop up beautifully. But I found this particular case study really interesting. They helped go from 3% of people actually like giving them their contact information to 13% of people. So they almost 4x'd the amount of people that gave them permission to let them, like, to build a relationship with them. And so this is actually a screenshot of their pop-up this week. And what it tells me is based on their A/B testing, by asking about their specific health interests, people are more likely to sign up because, yet again, they're like, oh, you see me, you care about me, you're going to send me content that's relevant to me and my health needs, which is a way that they can really add value. So I love that. And then last but not least, actually, this was in the last 2 weeks. I'm guessing, are there any Uncommon Goods fans? They reached out to me this week to say, who are you shopping for? And I love that. So they sent me a friend-focused gifting guide. Other approaches to segmentation. So here's kind of like the other list. I was kind of laughing and preparing for this because I could talk about segmentation for an hour alone. There's all these different ways you can categorize people based on where they live, to how much they spend, versus whether they're VIPs, you have a loyalty program. So you have this as a reference, but just know that you take things one step at a time, set some goals around starting to test out segments, and like take it from there. You don't have to do all of these at once, but over time, it's really, really valuable to understand your different customer segments more and create really relevant content for them. Okay, A/B testing. And any questions actually before we move on, automation and segmentation? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, well, definitely think about it. Let me know. So A/B testing, I am so excited about this topic. It is so much fun. So what is an A/B test? Essentially, it's creating some kind of piece of content. So like, let's imagine we created an email and decided you want to test some variable. And so I'm going to give you a bunch of examples of what those things are that we can test. But what you do is to test that variable, you copy and paste it using some form of an A/B testing tool, and then you change that one variable. And then based on, so then your customers will get split into 2 groups and get those 2 different versions, and you're going to learn which version did better based on your goals. That's the basics of A/B testing. Why does it matter? Well, with one of our brands in the first year, by running we ran a lot of A/B tests. We were able to optimize their content and i.e. make it better. And in that year, by the end, they were having like 2 times the placed order rate per recipient, as well as 2 times the amount spent per customer in their flows, which is pretty cool. And what was so great was we learned a ton about their customers, but also they actually saw the impact of it too in sales. Plus, I think it's really fun. I asked like a member of my team to help me search for some GIFs. I really love GIFs/GIFs, potato. I was like, can you find something nerdy but fun? And I like haven't seen an Urkel GIF before, so I was very excited. A/B testing is fun because you get to like explore and ask really weird questions. And we're going to talk about some of those. But the how is whenever possible, try to test one variable. Like you will see case studies where like someone will redesign a website completely and compare, did the new redesign do better than the old? But if you really want to understand what works, one variable at a time is the most impactful. So you almost have to create like a laundry list, like first let's work on subject lines, then let's work on these other details. So to give you some inspiration, we've got Peacock Alley. So Peacock Alley was founded by Mary Ella Gabler in 1973, and she basically established the luxury linen market. Peacock Alley is the first woman-operated, multi-million-dollar bedding brand in America, which is really cool. And basically, long story short, their bedding and bath products are insanely comfortable. And the reason that we started working with them is they suspected that they were like leaving money on the table by not taking the time to optimize their email marketing. And so we work with them on that and learning more about their customers. And then we also help them launch their text message marketing program. So what this case study is about is just questions in the case of Peacock Alley, that we got to ask. So whenever you think about what variables can you test, one of my favorites, I'm not going to tell you the answers, that's for Peacock Alley to know, and also might not be relevant for your customers. Kids or dogs? Would a kid or a dog lead to a higher click rate? We also looked at subject lines, although there's a whole conversation we can have about subject lines, thanks to Apple's privacy, new privacy laws, or privacy update. But just know that your open rates are now less accurate, and that's okay. It's just, we have to know that happened. And the intent is to protect people's privacy, which is not a bad thing. It just makes it a bit harder for us to know what's working. So we can test what subject line is most effective. Should you or should you not include the price of products in your emails? That's an interesting question. What's the best time of day to send your emails or text messages? Like, for example, I mean, I've actually so for Peacock Alley, like Klaviyo is actually able to kind of show like what times of day is helpful. But depending upon your brand, it might depend. Like for a hot sauce, for example, with Bernie's, like, would it be helpful to send messaging like around dinner time, like before dinner time, or because people are hungry, that's a terrible time to market to them? TBD. They will find out, I'm sure. Also, what about text messaging? Is it better with or without an image, right? It's going to depend on your customers. And so with that, over time, the whole idea of A/B testing is to learn and gain more insights about your customers, and not only improve like the emails or text messages that you're actually sending for those tests, but really big picture to start like understanding your customers in a deeper way too, right? Who are they? Why are these results what they are? And how can we create better content that's more relevant moving forward? And then last but not least, we have deliverability. And the topic of spam. And I'm just kidding. This is the spam I'm actually talking about. So this is my spam folder. And these are all brands that I like many of these brands, and their content is just is being filtered out by Google because of deliverability challenges. So what can we do to make sure that people that have opted into having a relationship with us can actually reach out to us and we're getting their content? Well, first and foremost, sending emails to engaged subscribers. It kind of makes sense, right? If people stop opening your emails, maybe you should just stop emailing them. So what this image is of is Klaviyo actually will create some automated segments. But also I know MailChimp, since that seemed to be a really big trend here, will also rate based on engagement. And if you go and look at your segments, it will give you the star ratings. So you can actually when you're working on a campaign, choose to send to the highly engaged people. And the reason you should definitely be doing that is that's what makes an impact on your deliverability reputation with Google and with other email providers, because essentially these companies are trying to figure out like who's harassing their customers. And because of the bad players, right, like we're all kind of punished, but it also is good business. So like for some of the brands that we've worked with, we've seen that it's actually better to send a big campaign to the most engaged people over the last 90 days than it was actually to email their entire listserv. And so that says something, right? Like instead of emailing everyone, they emailed like the specifically engaged and created that relevant content, and it worked. So sometimes less is more. Next, you also need to clean your list. So there are things called sunset flows, where it's like a series of email that's like, hey, peace out, I don't think you're interested, but if you are, you can click this button. And what happens is, if it's clear that they aren't engaged anymore, you go and you unsubscribe them. You should probably be doing this quarterly at minimum, monthly is even better. And then just looking at those segments to go, okay, like maybe I've stopped opening your emails. So finally you're like, instead of having metrics that aren't really relevant, because you shouldn't even count me after a certain point. Like if you're trying to figure out how to improve what you're doing, if I'm just not doing anything. So clean up those who are unengaged. Also use text in your emails. So for those of you who work with designers or are designers yourself, it's really easy to make beautiful emails by just using Adobe software or even Canva, for those of us who DIY. And yet, if you can use real text, it makes a big difference on deliverability. Also, you could think about relevant content. So for example, here's where we updated imagery to be focused a bit more on the holidays versus more traditional branding. And then have those key flows set up. So I'm just revisiting back to like where we started. Those main flows that we talked about, the abandoned cart, the welcome flow, they do well. Like people open them. They have like unusually high open rates because people, they care about them. Like, right? Like they signed up, they want to hear from you. And by having those in place, it'll help with your deliverability and your reputation. Other ways to improve deliverability are taking care of your VIPs, or even your subscribers and giving them early access. And then last but certainly not least, send content that people really like, right? Like be thoughtful in what you're sending and how often you're sending it. If you need some inspiration, you should definitely check out mailcharts.com. That's a fantastic resource. Also, typically most email providers often have inspiration areas too. So then that way you don't have to like reinvent the wheel. And then we're going to finally, like in conclusion, talk a little bit about why we recommend that you consider using both email and SMS. And so based on data that we've seen, like around like welcome flows, SMS, like 98% plus people open it. Like I have 5 text messages I haven't opened, and I will eventually open them all, right? Like if you text someone, it's a big deal, like they're getting it, which is a big deal. So it works. But interestingly enough, and they have a pretty high click-through rate, which is awesome. But we've at least been seeing like lower placed order rates. Whereas emails, a lot less people open them, but the click-through rate, and the click-through rate's a little bit lower, but then there's a higher place order rate. So it's like these different channels, it's all about understanding that they serve a different role. Less people are going to sign up for text message marketing, at least right now. So having a mix really helps drive growth for you. And so noting that like there's a role for all of them, I think is worthwhile. And one of the things to consider though is when you're building these automations, trying to make sure that you don't bombard people. So one of the reasons we've liked Klaviyo so much is you can set up a flow and put in text into it. So you know that like they're not getting an email the same day they're getting a text message from you. So if you can be, I highly recommend you be mindful of like when people are getting different things and different forms of content. And then the key thing to think about is with great power comes great responsibility. this is all about relationship building. Like it should make your customers feel good and you should feel good about your email and SMS strategy. And so like definitely think about creating content that people will love. When it comes to text message marketing, don't overly spam them. And then if you're trying to figure out how many emails or how often you should send emails, you can actually use tools like mail charts to kind of see what are your peers in your industry doing, to kind of get a sense of like where they're at. And then you as a brand get to decide what your values are, who you are, what you stand for, and then how you want to show up. Because we're all unique, and so are customers. With that, questions. Any questions?
So I'm going to jump in. I have a question.
Okay, cool.
So you mentioned Klaviyo.
Yeah.
So not everyone here is on Shopify, but like if you were to like review the top 5, what's a good strategy about like how to like figure out what tools you might want to use before you get locked in?
Ooh, I mean, yeah, there's always a lot of tools. That's what's so tricky. Trying to decide what, I mean, like, right, if you're on MailChimp and switching over to Klaviyo, like that's a big project, right? So when it comes to picking tools, I think it goes back to what are your goals? As for Klaviyo, yes, it definitely integrates with Shopify and it integrates and works with a lot of different tools, just like Shopify plays nicely with a lot of different tools as well. But what I would look at when it comes to trying to figure out what is best for your brand is doing the market research, right? Like I was actually really surprised for text message marketing. I'm pretty sure the market leader's attentive, but Klaviyo is kind of killing it in that ideally, don't you want one list with all of your customers with one customer experience? So with them, that's kind of their competitive advantage. They're like, do it all in one place. Let's make sure we don't harass anyone. Let's be thoughtful in how all of this like is orchestrated together. And so that's working for them. But then different platforms have different perks, right? Like if you're already on MailChimp, I would do like, you can even re-review or look at this deck. You can do A/B testing with any tool, right? Like you can do all of these strategies with pretty much whatever tool you ultimately decide upon. Ooh, does that make sense?
Well, that's great. Look at all the questions now. Awesome.
Yay. Okay, cool. So I confirmed, yes, Klaviyo plays well with Shopify. What's the best way to build an email list? So it depends. And I think a lot of it will be figuring out what works for your company. Anytime I talk to e-commerce leaders, I always ask this question. I'm like, what has worked for you? So one answer that I got that I found really fascinating was it was a travel company with like this very specific travel bag that they had custom made. And the strategy that worked best was paying influencers, right? Because most people, when they're trying to figure out what gear to get, they're going on YouTube. And so it was influencer YouTube videos that did really, really well to take them from awareness to interest and get them on social or the website. And then this is why, like what we talked about today is so important, is having like a pop-up, getting them to actually sign up and build a relationship, and then not botching that up and really surprising and exciting is really like what's next. Like you've been given the opportunity, make it count. Other ways to drive.
I have a follow-up on that. A question. Do you find do people tend to default, hey, if you purchase from me, you're automatically on my list? Or is that, are you supposed to explicitly ask them to be on the list after they make a purchase?
I think there's usually a button. I would definitely get true and clear consent. Do not ever automatically enroll anyone in anything. Don't do that. Because at the end of the day, they'll be grumpy and it might even not be legal. I don't know if I know I have one friend who's a lawyer who often talks about SMS and email legislation. I am not an expert on them, on that, but do look at that now since I brought it up. What is helpful is when you use email providers or SMS providers templates, oftentimes they're set up based on like GDPR best practices. So know that there are things that regulate how you email people and how you text message them, and follow laws. Last but not least, so how do you get more people discovering your brand so they can get on your e-newsletter list? Advertising. And I mean, so it might be influencer marketing, it could be micro influencer, it could be going to events and sponsoring events, it could be giveaways or advertising. But the thought is, and I mean, this is at least what like, I will make sure that like, if you're interested, I'm always happy to share that like one podcast with Clavio's VP of content. He was like, look, like advertising's gotten expensive. It does make sense to advertise on certain channels and test and understand what works. But the hope is that that advertising drives to you having a one-to-one relationship with them. So that's why like all of it goes together. Okay, next question. And any follow-ups to that one? Yes, no, maybe. Oh, definitely for recording. Oh, here we go. Why did emailing a smaller, more specific group lead to more sales? I don't even know, actually no, it was more sales. Like we had done better a year we sent to more engaged people than we did sending to the whole list. And at least our hypothesis is that when you email your whole list, it's more likely to be picked up by Google and sent to that dreaded spam folder. And so like, if you're like, hey, it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, woo, and you send it to everyone, it very likely will not get to everyone, which is why I did a whole section on deliverability. And then even looking at peers who specialize in email marketing, they have said like one of the hardest things to overcome is if you have a bad deliverability reputation. I mean, it's just like any kind of reputation. Like once your reputation is bad, kind of hard to get it back. So just know that if emails are not hitting inboxes, that's like really tough to come back from. That being said, if you suspect that that might be you, switching email providers will give you a fresh start. And if you decide to switch providers, no, you're starting fresh and you should be very careful to try to send content to engage subscribers because all of a sudden you're building a new reputation. Okay, what other questions we got? Pop up with a discount for email signups work well. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, one woman business and you don't have time to do all of this. I feel you. That is so real. Shout out to all of the small business brand or earlier stage companies. You can't do this all, and you don't have to. Back to like what we talked through today. The first place to start is have that abandoned cart set up at least a welcome flow email, right? And then start maybe if you're going to send campaigns, A/B test in your campaigns, right? Like if you know you're going to send an email to all of to your engaged customers, you're just going to go, you know what? Does an emoji or not an emoji like help lead to better results, like better click-through or placed order? So you just take the same email, you copy and paste it, and then you put an emoji in one, right? And you don't change anything else. That's kind of like the quickest way to start easily. And then deliverability is, I mean, a lot of it should be common sense. It's like, how do you want people to reach out to you? Like, how do you want for people to build a relationship with you? So you don't have to do everything. The other thing that's a huge time saver is not reinventing the wheel. So things like mail charts they're worth their weight in gold because you can figure out what are industry best practices and then how can you be different and unique. And you can look at emails that have been done before and just give them your own flair. Do it, your brand's way. So relationship managing, could that be outsourced or does that really need to be connected? I might clarification on like relationship managing. Does it need to be outsourced? Are you asking like from a marketing standpoint?
I don't know if it's okay if I come unmuted. I think it'd be faster.
Yeah.
No, thanks. So I'd asked this once and I got a complete direct, absolutely not. But to mimic off of what Christine said, if I'm making the marketing strategy and continuing to sort of test and adjust that, it's like I'm a marketer instead of focused on the mission. And are there organizations that will connect to my mission and then manage that part for me? Or will it be that I'll have to at some point have a team for this to grow bigger?
Oh, well, I mean, so when it comes to like marketing, I would say until you have an in-house team member, I would at least check out the pulse of what's happening with your marketing strategy and your content, because you as founder are going to know your brand. But you can absolutely find partners or freelancers to work with your brand and help you create content and develop like meaningful marketing strategies. So like our work is literally, I mean, our customers, we're like part of them. Like we like to see ourselves as an extension of them, and we help in whatever way makes most sense. But also we do that very closely with brands. Like we never assume that we know more than the brand does about their brand and what's right for their brand. And actually, like in our case, I'm personally a big believer in having some form of outside marketing, because you can't see the forest from the trees. Like I can't see the forest from the trees. Like right now, our homepage has way too much content on it. And we are having a marketer come in and do some customer research so we can like figure out what we should be focused on and emphasize most, right? Because it helps to have someone from the outside sharing that insight. And then plus, not to mention, like if it's a certain area, like in our case, we really honed in on email and SMS versus like digital advertising. So like we're very big into like looking at the big picture. And then we also like, since this goes in the market research space, we really like email and SMS A/B testing. But like if any of you need someone to do digital ads, like we don't touch that. Only because like you can't be an expert in everything. But if you suspect that like what your business needs right now is like digital advertisement to get people to, follow you and subscribe, like go and find an expert in that too, right?
Just
okay
a shout out on that. Bailey on our team has been doing a bunch of research on digital advertising agencies that get purpose. A lot of them are B Corps or work with B Corps or 1% for the Planet members and the like. And so we actually have a future blog post of the top 10 purpose-driven digital advertising agencies coming out. And, just a little editorial pitch there is that because Good Carts is powered by the post-checkout traffic of our members, we're always trying to find opportunities for you to get more sales, because that's what powers the whole thing, right? For our network. And so whether it be, converting your email and your SMS into more sales, that's one example. But also obviously digital ads bringing in new customers. So watch for that one. It should be a great piece of content. And maybe we'll even follow up with a webinar on that topic down the road.
Yeah, I love it. So yes, we do work with clients. We are taking on clients. Although one thing that I will say though is also being mindful of like where you are in your growth phase. So like the way we work with earlier stage founders is all about prioritization versus like the sweet spot for like doing some intense A/B testing is ideally if you have like 50,000 subscribers and like multi-million dollars in revenue. Like if you have one of those, then you have lots of data to do that work. So back to the, like, if you're small and you're like, we don't have time for this, right? Like with Bernie's, they're earlier in their growth phase. We really honed in on just what's your welcome flow? Let's like do an audit. Let's come up with the initial plan. And then here's a checklist of all the, questions that we have for your A/B testing that you're going to work on over the next year. But you're also going to probably have less data because you're earlier on. So honor where you're at in your growth. Like there's and do what is best for your organization when it comes to like making those strategic investments. And I hear you on finding marketing support that can be cost prohibitive. It's so tricky. Like as someone who runs a mission-driven marketing company, I just want to do everything for free. And it's not sustainable. So, yeah, it can be really challenging to try to find that balance. And on our end, we just try to create as many resources like this, where it's like, here's where you start. And then when you get to this point, call us. Anything else? Am I missing any? Oh, mail charts. I do love mail sharks versus mail charts. It's mail charts. Thanks, Bailey. Any other questions? Ooh, I know we're at 2 minutes left. Well, because if not,
Well,
here
Christina,
is how
yeah, good, go.
Oh, you
Yes.
have one more?
How do we reach you?
Yay, that's my next slide. There, if you have your phone, you can QR code it, or you can go to our website, and there is a pop-up, but it is snarky. Okay. Like marketing being annoying, like I feel like we get a really bad rap. And actually, I'm married to like a person that's very grumpy with bad advertising. But ideally, if it's done right, it should be delightful. And if you don't like GIFs or GIFs and think they're unprofessional, like you will not like our newsletter. That's the other thing. It's like we are not for everyone, and neither should you be. That's one of our taglines. And then you should definitely do the Good Carts demo. Like what you do for the community to drive awareness is amazing. I'm such a big fan. And if you all think of any other questions, by all means, email me or, find me on Instagram and we can chat.
That's great.
And I'm happy to help.
And we'll do a round of hellos first. So we actually have a lot of Good Carts members that are on the call today. If you want to hang out and say hi first, you can, and then I'll do the short demo. And it only needs one person to be there for us to do it. And so don't feel bad since we have so many people who are already members, but it'd be great to hang out. And we can just turn off the screen sharing for now, and then I'll load up the slides here in a second.
I'm working on it.
Oh, it's fine.
I might have to leave. I have 2 screens, but